Hello world, this is Shruti Pandey, and today I have with me someone very, very, very special who's been a support system for me, a shoulder to cry on, somebody who listens to my bickerings, ranting, story, and who never misses to look at my LinkedIn post and either secretly message me or let me know how much she loves what I write. So I want to tell you, Jeena, it means a lot to me. So here is Jeena James, GM Webpagetest at Catchpoint. And she's somebody I just love, admire. And I thought she needs to be on the podcast so that all you lovely people who would watch this would know a little bit more about her and learn some things from her, like I do. So, Jeena, thank you so much for doing this for me. I know how difficult and all taken up your schedule is day in, day out. So, this means a lot to me.
Thank you so much, Shruti. And I am so happy that we finally actually got along onto this podcast and just catch up as well. It's been a while, so we both had our own like experiences along the years. So it's been great to like just get to know somebody, even though we've never met in person, and we've never worked together at the same time on anything together. So this would be our first thing together. So that's
Yeah.
fun. So we can call that as something that we've done together. So I'm very excited to be here, and it's great to see how you've been, setting up this practice in some ways, like of connecting with folks and getting them to share their experiences with you as well as with everybody who's following you and listening to you. So kudos to you.
I mean, I don't know if I've said this to you before, but it was literally a Slack message you had posted in the company's channel. And I read it and I was like, why did she leave? And I had just joined. And yeah, seriously, I just joined the company and you had just left. And I'm pretty sure if we would have worked at the same place at the same time, it would have been so much fun. Like, so much fun. I can just imagine. And before we start the podcast, would you like to give a brief or like something about yourself so people understand who you really are, and then I can dive into the questions?
Absolutely. Okay. So, who I am, that's a loaded question. I will talk to you in reference to, like, I guess, just where I grew up, where I was raised. So, I was born and raised in Calcutta, in India, and was born to a South Indian family. My parents relocated, migrated from Kerala to West Bengal, and I grew up there, did the whole, like every summer vacation, winter vacation, up and down 2.5 days on a local train with my brother to visit family, extended family, grandparents, cousins. So that was my tie. And of course, just the language, Malayalam, was very prominent in the house. We spoke Malayalam, we spoke English, we spoke Hindi, Bengali, so multilingual in that sense, which also gives you a lot of when you look back, you realize the flexibility, the adaptability of picking up languages and cultures and customs makes one a lot more amenable to withstand a lot of changes. And over time, like things keep moving, things keep getting thrown at you from different angles. You keep throwing things at others in different ways as well, but you can navigate through it because you've been exposed to so much different thoughts and similarities, patterns between our customs, but at the same time there are so many things to celebrate as that are not the same. And so that gives you a lot of, it's a primer for the rest of other things that you do, like the choices you make in the education you take, the jobs you take, how well you do there. So definitely I would say, like, a lot of that upbringing, exposure to multiple cultures, stories, customs, and then just choices along the way. So that led me to finish out a major. I majored in economics, and I did math and stats as my side subjects, and got me a lot more of that analytical thinking, I guess, and just curiosity of like why things work the way they do, why do people behave the way they do, all of that. And I joined Google. That was my first job. Actually, there was a job for 1 month before, which was at a stock trading firm, which I absolutely did not like. It was not me. And I joined Google right after. So within a month itself, I got a call for a couple of interviews. And back then in 2006, it was like a lot of interviews before you even get that call for an entry level role. So yeah, that was Google back then, 5.5 years at Hyderabad, and then about half a year in Delhi. Moved to the US about 10.5 years back. So I've been in the Bay Area, California for that many years, and now new sets of customs, new traditions, new things. How even like people from India are here, like where, how everyone's acclimatizing and how people from other cultures are settling in another foreign land. So now it doesn't seem foreign to me because now I've also become a citizen. So I feel like there is this corporate, this patriotic, or not even patriotic, but like a country responsibility in some ways. So yeah, so who I am is like a combination of multitude different experiences. And I usually say this as like they say you're the sum of all your experiences. I am not the sum of all of my experiences. I'm actually most experiences have different weights. So I always keep talking about it. I'm the weighted sum of all my experiences, because each of my experiences has a different weight over a period of time. They don't have the same value. So it just feels like there's a lot more, there's more qualitative experience than just the sum of everything. Sum of everything just means you can check the box on everything, but you won't weigh it the same. So yeah, so I'm here and I'm now talking to you and excited to have this discussion.
The way you summarize that last part with sum and weighted sum, I literally
Oh.
had that summation figure coming in my head, and you spoke like a true mathematician or a
Oh my
statistician.
God. Yeah. I'm also all for cheesy phrases. Don't worry. Like something or the other will pop up. I'll be like, yeah, you should see how my team reacts to like random analogies that I make that don't make sense to
Oh, this
anybody.
is
But in my head, it just seems so correct. So yeah.
whatever you said was making a lot of sense to me, because there are so many similarities. I mean, a lot of things I didn't know about you, and thanks to this, I got to know, because my mom is from Calcutta. Like, we are North Indians. My great great grandfathers migrated to Mumbai. So I think when people think, right, that, oh my God, so many languages, how much my brain has to work to translate from one to another. I think, why do you think of it as a weakness? It's your strength, like the biggest strength you can ever have. So I know learning not just these languages, but languages is so important. So whatever you said made total sense to me. And you're like the summation of like boss moves in your life, literally, if
Oh
there's
my
some
God.
hashtag or stuff like that. So moving on to the first question that I have for you is something related to Google, because you've been there for 13 years, right? Like,
Yeah, little
job.
over 30. But yes, that was seems like forever back, but it was just about 2, 3 years back.
Wow. So all these years at Google, I want to understand, like, what does it take to work at Google? Because like the way you said, there were too many interview rounds for the entry level job.
Hmm.
I think nothing has changed much. Even now, they would have too many rounds. After all, it's Google. So what does it really take to join or work something like Google? And why did you leave Google, if you were to, yeah, answer that?
Yeah. The last question is what my dad asked me also. Who leaves Google? So don't worry. Everybody asks like, but the answer then, and before I go to the first part of the question, which is so typical me, but is, in order to join something, you have to, especially an employment, you got to leave. So you can decide to choose how you want to say that statement. Why did you leave a company, which sounds so negative, like, okay, why did you leave a company, versus, well, why did you choose to go to something else? Because choose to go forward is so different than just leaving something. So taking that forward was, so every time someone asked me, why did you leave Google? I was like, well, I got a really interesting opportunity, and in order to do that job, I have to leave. So one needs to happen for the other to happen. So I'm seeing it more like I want to take on something else. And in order to do that, I have to uncheck one box and move on. So yeah, anyway, but joining Google. So this is back in 2006. Things are, I hope, I mean, it better not be, but I hope things are a lot more better, lot better in terms of just understanding what the opportunities are, and then the interview process itself. Because obviously over time, the company has spent a lot of time and resources and people thought around how to make that interview experience before and after a really good experience for the employee or the candidate. because that matters. It goes a long way into how you show up for interviews. So every person you interview now technically would be very focused on a certain set of areas and attributes that they're looking at, and they discuss as a hiring group and make a decision. So even if, like, it's not just like, oh, the hiring manager has all the weight in the world and says, I want this person. I mean, there is a group of peers who are also going to give you contradicting or supporting statements. So a lot has been evolved and keeps on evolving for how you go get through that interview, but also the interview process. So but back in 2006, it was about, I think it took at least 6 months, which is why I joined something, because I felt like I had over indexed on trying to join a company instead of straight going into doing the entrance exam for an MBA or whatnot, which pretty much everybody in my batch was geared towards. If you finished your BSc in economics, everyone was either studying for ISI, Indian Statistical Unit, or like institute, or one of the MBA institutions like ZAT, CAT, name it, like all of them. All of those entrance exams were being written by a lot of my batchmates. And I went straight to, you know what, I want to work at a company, make some money. I don't want to take more money from my parents. I just want to work at some place and then fund if I want to study. So I went to my dad and I was like, hey, I just want to work. And in 1 year, I'm pretty sure I will write the entrance for MBA and I'll have the money to like go through coaching, because guess what? None of these things make it so easy that you can. If you work hard, you can write your exam and get through. If you work more, not that you work hard, but you work very hard, very determined, very dedicated. But then there's so many other sub teaching groups and courses that you have to take before you even write your entrance exam. And I didn't really want my folks to pay so much money again. So I joined Google, heard from them after like around 6 months, multiple interviews, and moved from Calcutta to Hyderabad for the first time. I had never even I never even lived with anybody else other than my parents. So a lot of, that early stages of, okay, entry level role, it's an extension from college in some ways, because many people from around the country are all joining right after
Yeah.
college to review ads, like those ads that you see on Google search. Back then, people used to manually review them before automation kicked in for the most part. And so reviewing ads was all that we did. Like, look at the ad, look at the landing page. They're talking about cats? Are they selling dog, like dog products? Okay, that's bad, wrong product. Like, take your decision. Is it approved? Is it not approved to run? If they're not approved, if they're approved, that adds to the revenue, right? Like opportunity to show up on the search results, be clicked or viewed. So very important, but also very initial, like a very junior role. So starting out from there. And how, back then, all of it was around hundreds of folks doing the same thing. And one of the things that I wanted to do then was, what are the other areas? Because if you keep doing the same thing, of course, there are thousands of people who are approving ads around the world. Many of them are in India, many of them are in other countries. And what else can you do? Because I was always for this, I get things fairly quickly. Now what? Like, what do I do with that? And where do I go? And how do I also try and work on something that can also show my own impact? And my impact is not necessarily like, okay, this one day I came and I did 20,000 ads. Then you'll have to sit and come and keep doing 20,000 ads. I would rather go and figure out how to automate those ads. Why would, like, if the ads have the same kind of characteristics, then what would that be? So I started looking for other opportunities within the company. And there was this team that was just starting, hiring for the second batch of people. It was this team called AdSense, which is not advertisers, but advertisements have to go onto different places, one of them being the content network. And so publisher side of things, so advertisers and publishers. So I moved into the publisher facing business and was working on that from different roles. I think I've done everything except for like coding and maybe payments. So, and especially in a market like India, you don multiple hats. So you don't just do one thing, you do a few other things. Again, goes back to that adaptability, flexibility, ease of moving. No challenge is too crazy, but every challenge sounds like crazy. So it's always this, you have extremes of different things being thrown at you. So
Yeah.
kind of learn how to be patient or even react. You learn how to manage your own reactions over time, which took me some time, pretty much. I mean, growing and evolving with everybody. So yeah, like getting into cracking that Google interview, I wasn't thinking about, back then I wanted a job and I wanted something that was interesting that not many people were really doing in my batch. And at the same time, in the role, I look for opportunities to, kind of what else could I be doing to make more impact or make visible impact, as well as just move the needle for that
Mm.
business and be able to move the needle. So that was most of, what directed and motivated a lot of the changes I made in my roles there, but also stay with an organization, grow from within. When things and that's the beauty of Google, like at some point there are so many teams, so many opportunities, that when you are looking for a role or a new opportunity or a new challenge, there is something within Google itself. So that, from 1 year that I told my parents that I was going to come back and do MBA, went on to 3, 5, 50, like 13. And I could have, I mean, honestly, if there were more opportunities that I thought were more interesting that I wanted to solve at that point, I would probably have stayed on as well.
Retired
Um,
there.
at
Maybe.
the same, I mean, there were so many things to do. Like if I go on to each one of them, it'll just probably take 10 podcasts. So I will leave it to a book someday. But at the end of the day, like
You've not thought.
everything was extremely rewarding, extremely uh, like had its own challenges and things I've learned along the way that made me question some of my own beliefs sometimes, my values, and how much I wanted to like work on certain things, how much effort you put in as well, and what kind of problems you want to solve. So those have all shaped what I do or think right now. And when it came to like 2019 was when I was again doing that whole soul searching of like, okay, what else can I be working on? Because I was part of a really, really good team, the Google Play team. We were when I joined, we had a few folks. We were the team was growing. We were doing a few things, but by the time I left, the scope, the opportunities were much more than when I had first joined. So there was a lot of inner energy, synergy, and there are so many teams who support different customers across Google, but the same customers sometimes and different teams. And we were working on how to like make all of that more, like streamlined and valuable for an overall partnership that Google has with the company and stuff. So there was so much good stuff going on, and I started asking myself the question of like, okay, what else? Like, how could I impact? I'm one among hundreds of thousands of people in the company. How do I like make an impact in my own team and the ecosystem? And so there was an opportunity that came in with a startup, took a calculated risk, I must say, to take on, and it was in the developers performance space rather than only developer, but performance space. And so took a leap of faith, looked at everything that one should look at. Again, another whole podcast that we can spend on just on that someday. But uh, got my own roller coaster of an experience, like great stuff, awesome stuff, learning stuff, challenges, and then trying to pick and figure out what else is the next step from a journey. And that lasted for like 14 months. And then I met my current CEO. Was literally a cold call on LinkedIn talking about what I've been up to, and I was sharing I was sharing things around the web performance space and developers, and the opportunity to manage Webpagetest came up in that conversation, which I'm forever like grateful, because that role was not even advertised. My CEO was looking for somebody who really understands the developer landscape and actually cares, and has ecosystem experience as well. And it's been an amazing, tremendously rewarding experience so far with the team that we've been building, with the charter we have and everything, like where we're going and creating our own waves as well. So I'm very, very proud and excited about what we've been doing in the last now, like about a year and almost year and a half.
I don't know about other females. I'm specifically saying females because I mean I'm myself one, and the way you narrate your journey and experience and story, it takes me back to mine, and there are so many spooky similarities. I'm not like wanting to take away any of your credit and any of your fame or greatness or anything at all, but like this is so relatable that you're like, oh my god, she's so amazing, and if she can do this,
Huh?
we can also try something, we can
Oh
also
my
do
God.
something. Because yeah, there's perseverance. And I also feel every time when people think, oh, you wear multiple hats in a startup, I don't think so that's the case. And I know you're a little elder to me, but at least our generation, I know, I call it ROI. I always was thinking that I need an ROI on whatever my parents invested on me, so I need a job. And I didn't go back to MBA myself, so I know what you're talking about. Because again, middle class family, my brother hasn't completed his graduation, I'm thinking of MBA. So there's so many things that in a middle class family and set up. And you literally, while you were sharing your story, there's so much that is going inside my head, and I didn't feel like stopping you or anything. I'm just like a
Oh,
kid.
you should stop me. I can go on and on forever.
No,
Like that's yeah.
this is so
But it's
amazing.
also
I
the
feel like having a couple more parts to this, because this is amazing. Like seriously, like you yourself said a couple of times that we need to have more of this. I think we definitely need to have more of this. Because I'll tell you one more thing precisely why. When I joined, or I graduated or became an engineer, the only female role model I had was either Indra Nui, who was out of my reach. So it was only through internet and stuff that I figured out. And since I joined Infosys, I knew a little bit about Sudha Murthy. And I think the biggest problem for females having a career is we don't see role models for ourselves. So how do we? Yeah, it's so difficult, right? So this is like taking me back to my age where I was like, okay, yeah, I want to look up to somebody. I want to be like inspiring or
thank
whatever.
you
So
so much. I mean, it takes a lot to say that also, but thank you so much for considering that. I know what you mean with role models. I mean, you get that age-old question, right? Like, who's your role model? It's very hard for me to, if anyone asks me that question, it's the hardest question I ever have. And part of me feels guilty that it sounds like I don't think anybody can be my role model. That's not the point. The point is that different people have so many different aspects of what you like about them and what they do. So like I've looked up to people who have had a certain upbringing and the problems and challenges that they face. I look up to my best friend who's gone through her own journeys and where she's actually taken her career, her personal life, and herself, like
yeah,
family, self, and work and surroundings and friendships, right? So every one of them, my mom has gone through different challenges, how she rebelled against her folks to get into the profession that she wanted to do, against their wishes and stuff. I've seen those things narrated, heard, but very few people you get to, like, while you are growing and working, they are also somewhere there also doing similar things but at a different caliber. And wishing and being in touch with that and like getting the energy from that is super important. I'm a very energy driven person. Like when there are folks, and that has nothing to do with age.
yeah,
Like I could consider, I there are things that I would say that I get that energy from you, from when you're posting. It has nothing to do with our age or our experience, because
right.
no, it has something to do with our experience but nothing to do with age. And it has also sometimes nothing to do with gender too,
Yeah,
because everyone is shaped in different ways, but their experiences, you'll take some nugget from their life that you can actually say, oh, that I get because I felt it, or oh, that's a good way of approaching something that I'm going through right now.
yeah,
And who cares how old you are, how young you are, how colored you are, or how not you are, whatever, it doesn't matter, because that person's experience is already taking into account all of that also. So it's the what do you get, what's that nugget, what's that information, what's that insight that you get from an interaction, and that energy that you get is all that I care about. Because I'm with you, like I'm actually reading the book, Indra Nui's book, and first few chapters are, it feels so like I'm transported to where she grew up, and the sounds of family and children and cousins, you can relate to it. Because whenever I've gone back to Kerala to meet my cousins, there was a swing in the house, there were kids, screaming or laughing or giggling, running around playing hide and seek, parents coming in after the day, grandfather sits in a chair and says certain things, like grandfather is somebody big in the village that they grew up. I can relate to them because they are all our stories too. Of
it's
course the age gap is different, the experience is completely different, but we can relate to some things. On the other hand, how many people are in the same, like right now in the workforce, trying to reinvent or establish themselves and grow? So I'm also curious and interested to always know people who are among us who are doing things right now, because there will be the next generation of those from us are going to come the next generation of the Indra Noois of the world, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I would love to like know more folks like them too. So
Yes. Okay. This was a whole literally journey. This one question with you. I mean, like literally, this is everything. But I still want to quickly cover two more questions that I have for you. My second question being, how can one transition to an advisor or angel investor role in their career, or should this be treated as a side hustle?
very good question, the way you frame it. My first thing would be anyone thinking about this, first of all, don't think of this as, it is needed, it's a right of entry for something. Figure out the something. Like, so having an advisor or a investor in your LinkedIn profile description, that sounds really good. Somehow every second person seems to be doing it, and putting it up for some reason or the other, right? Now all of us have some reason why we want to do it in an area that we want to probably specialize. So when you see it, always probe for, when you're talking to people who have done that, like you're doing right now to me. So the first advice would be, figure out what is it that you care about, because what is it that you care about, you will invest something. You may invest volunteering hours, you will invest time, you will invest money, or you will invest, like skill sharing, workshops, whatever it is. Investment advisor just takes it to another more formal level. So if doing it informally, like, do you have to make your first investment in a very, very good, important place? All of those are just, people's, what do you call, uh, what I want to check the box on, versus if you really think about what you care about, are you investing time and effort and money in them, then you are investing, you are advising. Those titles only take on a formal shape when you now ask, when there is an exchange of something. So when I am investing my time, but I don't really ask in exchange anything from most people. But when I'm going to invest in a startup or a founder, then I'm not just going to invest, like financially, I'm going to be investing. I'm also expecting something back, that is returns or like insights into something, an area that I don't know, but I want to invest and understand. So when it gets to a formal shape, that is when you start looking at, other areas too. So is it a side hustle? It's a side. For me, it's not the main thing. I don't know if it'll ever become the main thing. I have a lot of friends and people in my network who have made it into their full-time role of investing or advising or being on the board of directors. And that's a full-time role for them, which is great. I mean, everybody has figured it out on their own. I don't know if my aim is to be just that kind of a thing. We'll figure out as we go. I'll tell you what has driven my motivation to invest or advise. So advice has been, it's advice and information and ideas are cheap and plenty. So whoever wants to talk to me about anything, I'm always there. I like be the chief sounding board officer of somebody. Okay. So I don't think that's ever like going away. But when I've thought about formally advising, it's always also been in terms of, I care about certain things, right? So right now in my career for the last many years, I've invested a lot in developer experiences, developer ecosystems, web performance. So my investments have also been for people I know in the space who are just coming up or are at that inflection point of taking it even more scale. And so a lot of the focus, or discussions have been around, you are in this same space that I want to learn a lot more about, but you're not in the exact same space that I'm working on. So it's not contradicting to my current job. On the other hand, it's in an area that I care about, whether it's, a platform or anything to do with communal feeling, or it's something to do with, experiences for tools, dev tools, this and that. So my investments have been around that. My advice has been way more spread out, on anything. Like there is a company that's in the e-commerce space who is trying to set up their business in the US, and they're doing really well in one country and they're trying to do it in the US. And talking to them gives me a good idea of like things I know about the market, but also what we see from consumers. And then most of the time I don't know the right answers. I'll know where to go and nudge people to look at or find others or connect them from people in my network. So that's always going to be the case. Investment is a little bit more of that financial, back and forth, as well as terms agreements,
Mm.
and investing without the advice that I have is, if you have enough money and you don't know where to put and you're like investing, okay, that's one thing. But for me, investment has always been like, if I can't help someone, if I can't assist, if I'm not learning, then I don't want to really invest, because putting money is just throwing money. And that's just as you could throw it into the stock market, or you're throwing it into different companies. But I always try to invest where I can also spend time, and how can I help you beyond investing. So you'll see there are, when I changed that title on LinkedIn, I started getting, I still do, too many requests on like, oh, can you listen to my company? Can you listen to my pitch? And random things were happening, like completely unrelated to what I even care about. So it's like, okay, maybe it's just that regular lead gen word in the title. Now just go bomb blast all these people who have, you know, all these things, send them these emails around, let's talk and all of that. So I updated my LinkedIn profile with like, okay, you made it here, you want to talk, but
I've
before you talk, can you please tell me these answers to these three
I've
questions?
seen
Because if
that.
you feel like you can answer these three questions, then yeah, we are the right fit. Otherwise, there's no point, because you're going to waste your time trying to tell me that there is this one technology that you're working on that has, I can't even understand and help. Like, I don't even know. So here are my areas. If you have some, so I try to like curtail. I don't know how many people really read it. I still get a lot of things on other things, but I tried. So yeah, I'm more deliberate about the time I spend in talking and understanding what folks are working on. But if they just want a soundboard, if they want to just hear, and if there's something I can help with my experience, absolutely.
I mean, you reminded me of something when, like you rightly said, that I've put advisor on my title because there was a time since the past 2 years, when you start writing on LinkedIn and people just start to come and then they notice, oh, she's the helping kind. So all the more people start to come at you and they'll be like, Shruti, how can I create my resume? Can you refer me? Or it starts from the smallest things and then it graduates to like, I have an idea. Can you hear? And there literally came a point where my mom was like, why are you doing all this for free? And literally it took me 2 years to realize, why am I doing all this for free? And I should probably
And start asking.
about this. I should
Yeah.
probably start doing something about this. And the moment especially in India, when you put something like an advisor, people go crazy because they are like, oh my god, ये तो अपने जैसी थी, इसको क्या हो गया? Advisor बन गई? वो बड़े लोग, what happened? I'm like, oh my god, no, I'm still a very chota log. You don't do this to me and stuff like that. And I love the fact I researched your profile, right, to create these questions. And when I read that questionnaire you had for angel investment, I'm like, she uses demand gen everywhere. She knows how to narrow funnel and do things everywhere because she
But
exactly.
it doesn't start from day one. See, this is the thing. You have to allow yourself to be bombarded with a bunch of different questions. Because, see, why do you want to advise or invest? Because you want to learn, you care, and you are curious, right? Like, if I care, I'm curious, I want to learn, and I want to help. How can I help? Favorite four letters, four word phrase that I have. Because it's just literally like, how do you think I can help? So that's a loaded question. How can I help? Why do you think I can help you? Right?
Correct.
Like, and those are important, but it didn't come just like that. It came from, my funnel was very large. Like, I didn't plan it like that. All kinds of people started talking, all kinds of ideas kept coming, and I was excited because, hey, the best thing you can do is be, exposed to as much ideas and passion and energy, because everybody has energy and passion for what they're doing, especially founders and entrepreneurs who are trying to get their word and voice across.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you're talking to them, you also realize many folks really want, would they have amazing ideas, positioning, narrative, storytelling. That is it, that would get them off the edge, the next level. So you want to hear it, and then you realize, okay, fine, now this is fifth week, sixth week, I don't have the energy to meet everybody. Now
Mm.
my energy is getting less.
Yeah.
So what do I do to make sure it's a good time for them and for me? Because these people are also spending time with me, and then they have to follow up with me, and I may not be interested in talking more. So making it easy for both groups, I started creating that. And now it's much more refined a little. Once in a while, I'll make sure there'll be weeks where I'll go into there's a NASDAQ entrepreneurial center, like where I'm a mentor. So I'll go and like declare, okay, this week I'm going to be available on Wednesday, Thursdays for half an hour slots, and people can go find time. And if they want to talk about certain things. So now I make a more proactive, conscious effort on which areas I open up, because our time is finite, and advice, like I said, people, I mean, I've realized this, people love talking about different random ideas with, in conversations, and I keep giving more and more ideas because my brain goes in 10 different ways, which is great, works really well for them. If it's really sucks for me, because over time all I know is that I have no idea if they actually found value in it. Did they even see it in action, unless they come back and tell me, oh Jeena, I applied something you said and it worked. um, Not because I want to show off anywhere, but I will also know if my idea actually lands. So so you want to be a little deliberate, but expose yourself in the beginning. Don't take my end result as the first starting step for many. I know everybody says, like, learn from other people's mistakes, but also learn from how they came to that mistake. Try it out. Maybe you will reach a different path. Don't start where they left, like to get the shortcut. No shortcut.
There are no shortcuts, man. I mean, I personally feel people see कि हाँ किसी को copy paste कर लेंगे, but वैसा नहीं होता है. You have gone on your journey. I have been on my journey. You can probably see something, all whatever you see or you perceive, but you can't copy somebody in totality. You're still going to be Jeena, and I'm still going to be Shruti, and whoever. I mean, they are going to be themselves. There's no framework to copying, right? I mean, they might think that it's just control C, control V, but I really like the way you ended that sentence, that don't start where I stopped or something like.
Yeah,
It's an
don't start.
experience.
I believe it or not, I just made it on the spot. I told you I make cheesy dialogues after a while.
But
But yeah, I think
it was
about it.
very
I don't know
profound. It went to a deep level.
like, there's no point. I don't want to know everyone's mistakes. I just want to know, like, learnings. What did they pivot on? Where did they do? Because there is no way I'm going to absolutely recreate that same time, that same moment in the same way. I'm going to have my own journey. You're going to have your own journey. Collectively, we are going to have our own together journey in some
Yeah.
way. We got to just, when we are placed with those learnings that others have had, we just need to have some supporting arguments. Yes, I want to make this step to make this change on our platform. Why? Because I have heard 10 other companies say that they've valued it, and they found value in it. Okay, great. Take one more layer. Why? But they did it 10 years back. Systems have changed. People have changed. Okay, now let me go and add another data point. Let me try it out. It worked for us. Go write a story. Now move. Like, that you have to rethink about it, not get into it, because don't avoid getting into something just because some 10 people have tried and tested and failed. Maybe there is another angle. Ask what assumptions that they made, what are the assumptions that people made, what are the principles they had, first principles, and then move on with your own if you still think it's an idea that you want to pursue.
I mean, if this entire episode is not advice, I'm not sure. Like, yeah, it's all of this is like brilliant golden nuggets of advice, right? At least for me, it is. And my final question is, yeah, my final question is like, it's my favorite question. I don't know how you would feel about it, but I really want to understand any advice you would have, especially for females, on how to succeed in their career.
It is a, it's a good question. It's a very good question. It's also a very, again, a loaded question, because it can be seen in so many different angles. This is what, and so the maybe I'll base it on like something that is more recent in terms of, which I think not just for women, but anybody who is really looking to grow career, are in a certain position, in a certain role, doing certain set of have a certain set of responsibilities, and want to go to the next level. Now, the advice, not the advice, but it's more from my own journey that is more recent, around things that have happened. We say question everything, right? I kind of started looking at, I don't want to question everything. I want to make sure we are aligned on the assumptions we make before we start something, and make sure we keep checking in. Are we still aligned on those assumptions? So for certain, like you take goals for organizations, for team, for even purpose, like even friendships. Sometimes, yeah, I want to meet this person in a couple of months and I want to catch up with them and I haven't seen them in a long time. It could be a personal thing, it could be a professional thing, but before you get, before you start something with your manager, with your team, or with your partner or relationship or any of that, make sure that there are some assumptions that are checked. Like, we want to make X happen. Whatever that X is, how will we define that we are successful? When do we know we have done something well? Because, say, I want to, this sounds really controversial if I use that example, so I won't use it. But like, you want to grow any business, you want to grow revenue, okay? And you want to 10x revenue, for example.
Okay.
You can 10x revenue in 20 different ways.
Mhm.
Define what success means. Like, will you increase revenue by getting a lot of companies buying your offering at like $1 million each? Because that approach and strategy is very different from when you will go and try and get 1 million people buy it for $10 each, or any of those, like metrics. Because the way you will approach 1 million people would be through something much more scale and consistent with product platform goals, and a lot of it where the product is trying to sell itself. And when you're trying to get it through few deals or few experiences, then you approach it differently, because then I'll package my product and solutions and offerings in a certain way to make sure that over a period of time, both the customer and the company finds value, and the relationship grows and the business relationship goes, right? So if we don't define what success means, you can't just have a broad statement that just sounds like I'm going to change the world and I'm going to get rid of poverty. How?
So,
Some people will do it by some means and the others. And so asking yourself and your immediate team and your managers or your heads of businesses that we have this goal, how are we going to get there? What are the metrics we are going to look at to get there? And then frequently make sure that you check in when it's your one-on-one or your team or any of that. You are doing a bunch of different things. Are we still making it to, we can prioritize in 10 different ways. This work, can I still make sure that this is tied to like getting what our top level goal was? Because if you if you don't have those check-ins and you don't ask for it yourself, it's not your manager's responsibility always to like make sure that your career is going in a certain way.
yeah.
You also want to make sure your career is going in a certain, you have to, not even you want to. You own your career, you own your conversations, you own your narrative. Others will have their version of a story of your life. You have your story.
So is
So
it just
you,
about the goals and having the KPIs and KRIs associated to it?
it
Or
sounds very scientific and sometimes sounds boring, right? Like, oh my God, it's like, oh my God, I have to write like KRs and I have to write OKRs and this and that. It's it's not to that extent as many level set. Like there are 10 ways to go and get what you want in your life, in your career, or in your business. Define a few things you're going to try out in the next few months and make sure that when you're making progress against them, you are actually level setting with your own team and your managers or your decision makers. Are we on the same track? Assuming we are on the same track, what do you not want is you do a bunch of different things. And this is why as much as I used to like painstakingly keep on dreading perf season in Google, I had 13 and a half years of writing performance reviews. And I would, but by the end of it, you're conditioned in some ways to realize, okay, we said we would do a certain set of things as a company. Every department took its goals. Every sub team took a goal. And I have my personal OKRs.
correct.
Now I can see where I fit in with everybody. Of course, what I do is not going to bring $1 billion to Google Ads revenue. Of course, maybe if I'm a much more senior member, then I influence that. But I myself am not. But I might be doing certain things in my role that are leading to the needle moving somewhere, right? Now, you know your work. Now you're meeting your manager every day, every week, or whatever, and you're having your conversations. Assume you don't do any of this stuff. You have no idea. You have been told you have to work on a few things, and then you're doing whatever you do. In your one-on-ones, everything goes fine. It looks okay. Performance season comes in, appraisal comes in, equity refresher comes in. All of those are not what you think you should get. Why? Why do you think you should not get that?
They
Where is
were
the base?
their own assumptions. So this is
Where
where
is the base?
assumptions come.
So yeah, so the baseline is important. Like you have to have a baseline. What did we both agree we were going to kind of try and do? Did I accomplish them along the quarter? over the year, what are the new things that came in that took us away but got us better results?
Yeah.
What are things we decided we won't do? And now in that, your manager, your team, your leadership team will be able to see how are you navigating things that are given to you, how well are you doing it, how are you maneuvering through ambiguity, what other opportunities have you seen for yourself that helps the team really well. There you grow. You can't grow because you sit in a vacuum and you expect people to know how you work. A lot of people say that, oh, my work should speak for itself. Work is not going to speak for itself, especially in today's world, unless you are, I don't like,
No, it doesn't
what?
work.
I can't find a job. I can't. And the analogy that I make there is like, we keep saying we're talking apples to apples. We're not talking apples to apples.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We could both be talking about apples to apple, except I'm talking about green apple, you're talking about red apple. We didn't even discuss that. We didn't even like actually talk about that. We think we're on the same page. We did not even align. And
Smart.
thinking on the same page and putting a metric next to it saying that, I'll give you an example. I have this personal passion of like, I want to do something in a particular space. I want to someday ever have a nose ring kind of focused e-commerce thing. Okay. And I can say, yeah, someday I'm going to have this nose ring business and it'll be fine. But it matters to me that I actually break it down into, well, how do I know I made it? When do I know I have at least done something for it? I can't just say it'll be the day I, magically like land in a place where the website is there and everything is there and all of that stuff is happening. No, it starts with some step. That step is, say, where, I'll know that I've done something well if I have sold 100. So there's a journey to get to the 100. I have set my baseline. Now we'll know if we make it or not make it, right? And how hard it is to make it. And do I really want to do it for another 100,000? I don't know. So I can use a personal example because obviously, I don't want to use anything to relate it to anybody's work or my own work because there are different thinkings behind all of those decisions. But yeah, from a personal standpoint, I want to go to Machu Picchu someday. When will that happen? I have to put some goal around it. Otherwise, how do I know? Otherwise, it'll be a sense of regret and it'll come and go and I would never have made it to Machu Picchu. Why should I be surprised? Yeah, because I didn't have a plan and I didn't align.
I'm surprised. Why can you not go there? Like, seriously? I'm surprised. And I'm pretty sure the way you love nose rings so much, if you ever start a business, you will keep
Oh,
all of them for yourself. You'll be like, business mera hi aane do.
that is number one reason why it has not started so far.
See,
Every time I go to India and I buy a bunch of nose rings, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to like hand it off to friends of mine and see if that even matters because I have certain assumptions I want to test. So I was like, I don't know if, I'll come back to the US, it's all on my nose. It doesn't go to anyone else. So
now I know in case we meet, I know what I'm supposed to gift you.
that is, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that now I've made it into my personal joke of a plan.
Really? Oh my gosh. I swear, I'm not sure how this is going to go with other people, but I enjoyed this thoroughly. And if people love this, and if they let us know, if they let me know in the YouTube comments or whatever, wherever I post this, I'm definitely, I promise you, we'll have a part two where I'm going to be as candid about the similarities between us, and there's going to be so much more fun. If at all people think that this was a great session where two girls were doing all crazy talk or educational talk or whatever they would feel like, but I you have my word on this. If they love it, will you come back though for a part two?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
I mean, we've spoken quite some time, and every time we would be like, these two crazy girlies talking, and I didn't realize we were so intellectual and intelligent that it really makes me think, okay, we would have set a place on fire if we were working together. I don't know if you feel the same, but I genuinely got the feeling by the end, my goodness, it's actually whichever place is lost that we two aren't working together there.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been so much fun, like so much fun. But are there any closing thoughts that you may have, Jeena, for all of us who would be listening this?
Honestly, I will be very grateful for folks who actually spend a lot of time to listen to our long conversation, because I think that would be pretty cool. And just hear everybody else's, like what do people have to ask or say. I think I just there's a lot that we're all learning. I'm learning. There are assumptions and hypotheses, and it's just the first thing comes from like being a blank slate. Take as much information, ask as much of questions, probe, make sure that we're on the same page, because otherwise people just we're humans, we interpret things differently. If we didn't, it wouldn't be fun. So then the best part is like, let's get our foundations on the same page and then go creative like crazy. If you are only creating without having certain foundations, then it's up to everyone else. Like people will make stories out of that, whereas you have a chance to create that narrative too. So I'm all for when two or more people are working on things together, repeat, reiterate why we do what we do, what kind of opportunities we're unlocking, what things we're doing, because that goes a long way with more people asking, when they see that, they'll be like, yeah, but there are other ways to do this too. Let's try that too.
Yeah.
So the foundation is set. The ways in which are the KRs, right? Like, I mean, tactics, things that you do top of it. But the foundation has to be there. We are going to do X by doing Y. What is that Y? Like, define the why, because that why is very important.
So important. It's so important. I mean, not just Simon Sinek, but even I feel so that why is so important.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to end up with like, oh my god, I thought I did so well and now my performance rating is meets expectation. Why? A constant
That
conversation.
is a wrong why.
My most popular conversation, and I'm like, I don't know where to begin. Like, did you have conversations with your manager? They were, consistent. um, did you level set? Were there goals shared? Things like that. Because then you get a sense of like, you and I are in this together for a certain set of things that we want to make a difference. So then your rating or information or growth or appraisal, none of those, they should not be surprising. They should be surprisingly awesome.
Yeah.
But they can't be surprisingly dismissive. Just because there has to be some understanding. You get into the meeting, you think you're going to, like not get a great quarter because of the stuff that you've done. But you can't be shocked that you got that. Shock is not
Unless
something
there's politics happening, I'm already having questions for part two. Like
I
seriously,
mean, in general, like, no. This is all the other stuff before, like in my career, not now. Now it's like a lot,
I'm
definitely a lot.
talking for juniors, for people who have not attained, the stage yet. So for us, I mean, we know whatever current we have done and what we should expect. Like I think most of us do these days. Like not everybody is like careless or carefree about what they're doing, but yeah, the external factors which I see people talking about is like somebody just played some game, somebody just did some politics and stuff like that. So I don't know, maybe
I
things happen.
mean, um, how do I use this as an example? I guess, say, as a solutions engineer, you are brought into as many demos and calls. People just like, what is your goal? To show up in the demo and do the best thing. What is their goal? The person who brings you in, their goal is to close the deal.
Yeah.
What's the goal of the other person who you're presenting to? They just want to see if your solution can actually help them, or they need to go shop around for more,
Yeah.
right? All three parties are meeting on a conversation to see if this particular solution is going to help them
Right.
and solve what their challenges are. If you aimlessly sit and just do the demos as you're called upon, whatever time of the day, then at the end of the month, you will feel like, yeah, I've done a lot of work.
No,
It's a lot of work. I should be
never.
getting expectations because I've done so much, right? Who is responsible for actually figuring out that out of the 50 demos you did in that month, 20 of them went into stage 1, 5 of them have stage 4 or whatever, and 2 of them closed, and those 2 yielded x amount of revenue annualized.
I don't know how this would happen for others, but for me, it would be like, why am I being used only as a demo engineer? Like, I am a solutions engineer. Why am I just giving demos? That would be my first why. And even before that, and this is true story because I've been that, I would first ask my AEs, like, why am I needed on this call? Like, what is my role? Why am I there in this meeting. And I know it sometimes, like beats the shit out of people to keep it simple. Like, yeah, then why are you questioning? You should just come to the call. But yeah, I think I understand why. And I'm not wrapping this call. I don't know why. Because I think that was like the parting thoughts. And again, I'm trying to get into another bunch of arrays of answers and solution, which means that literally I don't feel like ending this
Oh
conversation.
no, that's totally fine. I think a good way to wrap would be, if I can, help there, is it's to really make sense of like that feeling that you have for your work needs to be expressed in words and actions to your team and your managers. And they also need to nod in agreement that that is part of it. If they don't nod, then you are pretty much, you are a hired gun. You can totally do whatever you want to do, like total, you want to do it and it gets us revenue, great. You don't do it, it's okay. That's not the, you don't want an indifferent experience. You want something that is making a difference, not indifferent. So make sure that whatever work we're doing, like all the stuff that you're working on, has that impact, or the progress. Impact is not always it closed, progress towards the goal. And that is clear with your team, with your leadership team. So then you guys are talking the same colored apple. Like, it's not a surprise. You should not feel at the end of the thing that your energy was completely drained. You gave 200%, and now you don't see that translated into other forms of recognition or whatever. If you've given 200%, what was the premise? What is 200% off? What is the
Yeah.
baseline? So settle that once you've talked about it, they understand it. Bring them along in the journey. It's your journey, but they have to come along with you. So share that with them and see where it comes up. Like, okay, I think you're doing too much over here. You don't need to do that, Shruti. You're already doing awesome. So that is already somebody else's role. So let them do that. I get that you want to do it, but you don't have to necessarily, because that group has, unless you want to do that person's job, then it's up to you, right? So it's important to have those conversations. I feel like we don't communicate enough, and we don't communicate
Yes.
clearly all
Yes.
the time,
Yes.
in order for us to test our assumptions. Are we on the same page?
Yes. Yes. Yes, and I sometimes feel that some people actually enjoy this confusion. They are like, this is better, and it's not
Oh,
clear.
I love the chaos. Don't get me wrong. I will not go into a team that is not. If everything was set up, it would be so boring. One
No,
of the, like, it'll be
I'm
so
talking
boring. You're
communication
now one half.
aspect. Nothing is clear until
No,
it's
you're a
created.
hamster in a wheel, and now you're a hamster in a bigger wheel. Nothing has changed. You cover more distance. That's all. But at the same time, like, I do like chaos. Chaos is in the sense that things are still being created, settled, modified, grown. But the joy in that is to make sense of the chaos and form, like kind of, and figure out the method and bring peace to it and have a good growth plan around it. Chaos can't be chaos forever. That is not going to help anyone. No one will be personally and professionally satisfied with that. But if you want to, like, come in, figure things out, ask questions, put things in place so that you can now start seeing people coming together, operations coming together, delivery happening, and now more ideas can come and bring chaos to it.
The good
That
chaos.
is the same.
The good chaos, basically. There
A
has to
good chaos.
be goodness also in chaos, not like.
Complex. Yeah, I mean, otherwise work would not be fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, thank you so much. I know I've taken a lot of your time, but this was really surreal to me. It still feels so dreamy. I don't know why that I finally managed to do this, but it really means a lot to me, Jeena. And I already have questions in my head for a part two. If
Oh my
people really
God.
enjoy
Yes,
this
that'll be
one,
fun.
yeah. If people enjoy this one, like it's a promise from me for you and for them. Like, yeah, I will see to it that we do it.
That's great. And so good talking to you, Shruti. And I'm really happy that you're doing this. And I don't think any conversation of ours can end in like 15 minutes ever. So it's totally
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. And I'm glad that we got to connect. Yeah. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.